Okay, guys, so there wasn't a P5 factoring video listed on that list of videos that I gave you guys. So we're going to go through a couple of problems, or a few problems just for a quick refresher over factoring, and I will look at working some of your homework problems. So let's see if we can switch back over here. And we have my number one, your number one may be different. It says factor the greatest common factor from the polynomial. So we'll go over here and see what that says. We have the problem, 27x squared plus 18x, okay? So number one, 27x squared plus 18x. And it wants me to factor this. So using the greatest common factor method. So we ask ourselves, what is the biggest number that will divide into both 27 and 18? Well, that of course is going to be 9. And then we're going to ask ourselves, what will divide into x squared and x? And what that's asking is, okay, what's the common variable there? Well, we know that's x. And we want to know the exponent that can go into both x squared and into 1. So pretty much what you're doing is you're choosing the exponent that's the smallest between the two. So that's just going to be 9x. So we ask ourselves, okay, 9x times what gives me 27x squared, and that's going to be 3x, plus 9x times what's going to give me 18x, which is 2. So we want to go back over here and we want to type in 9x parentheses 3x plus 2. So let's see, we've got 9x parentheses we don't want to use our brackets. Let's just put, where'd our parentheses go? Well, that's not very friendly, is it? There we go. 9x, and we had, I believe, 3x plus, find our plus there, 2. And close parentheses. And yes, those of you that have used my lab and mastering before know that sometimes it is a little bit contrary on how we type it in. Okay, so we see that we got number one correct. All right, let's skip on. Number two is going to be very similar to that. Let's see number three. Number three is a little different. Let's see if I just take a picture. And I'll take a screenshot. Okay. Let's see, it might be easier just to go here. And then I have number two. And let's dump number two right there for us. Okay. And we want to select the correct choice, and we have x squared times x minus 3 plus 17 times x minus 3. So we have to look at this as a whole and then as two small parts. So if I look at this as a part, and this is a part, and I go, okay, what do they have in common? And I go, well, they have the x minus 3. So both of these terms have x minus 3 in them. Okay, so x minus 3 times what will give me x squared times x minus 3? Well, that's x squared. Plus x minus 3 times what gives me 17 times x minus 3? Well, that's 17. Okay, so you factored out an x minus 3. So I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to type in parentheses, x minus 3, close parentheses, times, open parentheses, and my lab and mastering is not going to like that, guys, that I have put a capital there. I promise you they're not going to like that. X minus 3 times x plus 17. Close parentheses. And we're going to type that in. Uh-oh, they didn't like that. It should have been an x squared plus 17. My apologies. There we go. Now we're good. Okay. Let's go ahead and do question 4. So we want to factor the following by grouping. Okay, so these first two problems that we did right here, these were known as greatest common factoring. We took out a greatest common factor, okay? Both of these were, because and generally, guys, that's our step 1 when we factor anything, okay, is we look for the greatest common factor. What is there anything, a number or a variable that we can take out of all of the terms that are listed? Now, number 4 tells me to factor by grouping. And when we factor by grouping, we generally have an even number of terms. And usually in these questions, for your purposes, there's going to be 4 terms. And if you remember, when I say terms, those are the parts that are in between the plus and minus. So I have x cubed minus 6x squared, x cubed minus 6x squared, and then I have plus x minus 6. Plus x minus 6, okay? So what we do when we factor by grouping is we arrange the terms where we can take any common factors out and we have the same set, the same thing left in parentheses in both sets. So we want to make it, we start off with it large like this, and we want to make it look very similar to this right here, okay, where we can take a part out. So once again, we do have 4 terms. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the first 2 together, and then I'm going to look at the last 2 together. So I have x cubed minus 6x squared, and I ask myself what can come out of both of those terms, what can factor out. That's going to be an x squared, and what do I have left? Well, x squared times what gives me x cubed? That's going to be x, minus x squared times what gives me 6x squared, so minus 6. Plus, now you see that x minus 6 there, and there's really nothing you can take out, is there? Okay, well, there's just something very common there. What number sits in front of x? What is x's coefficient there? We can go, well, that's a 1. So if I factored a 1 out, what would be left on the inside? Well, x minus 6, right? Because 1 times x is x, and 1 times minus 6 is negative 6. Okay, so now when we look, we see what do each of these sets have in common? Well, they have an x minus 6. So I'm going to factor that x minus 6 out. And what will be left when I factor that out? That's going to give me x squared plus 1. So I have x minus 6 times x squared plus 1. And we said that was going to be, let's see if I can remember, x minus 6 times, we said x squared, yes, plus 1. If I can remember too, that square on there, x squared plus 1. And let's see what we've got there. Yep, and it likes that. Okay. Okay. Number 5 is going to be similar. That's going to be a factor by grouping. Number 6, okay, number 6 is what you traditionally remember when we factor. These are the kind that we multiply to be the last term, or we multiply to be that constant, and we add to be the middle term. Okay, so I've got x squared plus 10x plus 21, and this is question 6. Okay, so question 6 says x squared plus, was it 10x? I'm thinking so, plus 21. Okay, now, so what we do in these kind, you remember, for the first thing that we look for is that this particular problem has a leading coefficient of 1. Okay, and by leading coefficient, that means what is the largest number, or what is the number in front of the largest exponented variable. So what we're doing is we're looking right here at this x squared, and we're asking ourselves, what is the coefficient or the number in front of x squared? Now, it's not 0, because if it was 0, then that x squared wouldn't actually exist, because 0 times anything is 0. So what times x squared gives me x squared? Well, 1. That's why we say it has a leading coefficient of 1. Okay? So we're asking ourselves, once we determine that the leading coefficient is 1, we ask ourselves what multiplies to be 21. Okay, so that is this chunk right here. What multiplies to be 21 and combines, we're not going to say it, we're going to say combines to be 10. Okay. So I need to multiply. I'm looking for the factors of 21. Well, let's think about it. We've got 1 times 21, and that equals 21. But what does 1 plus 21 equal? Well, that's 22. So that's going to be out. Okay, let's do another 21. Well, I've got 3 times 7 equals 21. And then what's 3 plus 7? Well, yep, that's 10. So I know I'm going to use 3 and 7. And so this will become x plus 3 times x plus 7. And it's factored. So we can go back over here and we can type in x plus 3 x plus 3. Oh, I had a capital, guys, and y'all are going to tell me, yep, my lab and mastering is not going to like that. X plus, and I think I didn't put a 3. Oh, yeah. See, that's little, there it goes, it made it. And then x plus 7. Okay, and we're going to answer that. Great. Okay. Question 7 is very similar. This is going to be, it has a leading coefficient of 1 again. We see that. And then we also see, we're going to tell ourselves, okay, well, what multiplies to be negative 45 and combines? Let's work this one, because this one has negatives in there. And you guys sometimes don't like those negatives going around. You don't prove me wrong and go, oh no, we're great with negatives. Let me just edit the picture here. Okay, so if I go here, And that'll work. Okay. So we do have a leading coefficient of 1. All right. And we need to know what multiplies to be 45. And it needs to combine. And guys, that's why I use the word combine, not add, not subtract. When I combine the two numbers that multiply to be 45, they need to combine to be -4. Okay? So, and this should be a -45. So it needs to multiply to be -45 and combine to be a -4. Okay, so let's think about it. Well, there's a 1 and there's a 45. And that makes a positive 45, but I need a -45. Right? So let's make the 1 negative. And that's going to give me a -45. But -1 plus 45 equals 44. So that's nowhere near close. Okay, and some of you can go ahead and think, well, I know 9 times 5 equals 45. Okay, that's great. We need a negative. So you decide that +9 times -5 equals -45, which is true. So what is 9 plus -5? Well, that's a +4. Do I need a +4? Nope, I needed a -4. So let's think about it. If I used a -9 times a +5 this time, that is going to give me a -45. And then if I use -9 plus 5, what do I get? -4. Okay, so this tells me right here that -9 and 5 are what is going to work out here. So I can go x, and it doesn't matter if you say x minus 9 first or if you say x plus 5 first. It doesn't matter. So we've got x minus 9 times x plus 5. All right, let's see if we said here, parentheses, x minus 9 times x plus 5. Okay, we're going to check that. All right, and that is question 7. Okay, now you see that we do have quite a bit of lists more to go, and we're on question 8. And I tell you what, this video's been going a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and post it on the 1 through 7 part, and then I'll post another video starting with question 8, because it's going to be a little more complicated because you guys have you factored things, differently depending on the leading coefficient not being 1. Okay, so let's take care of questions 1 through 7 here first.